Welcome to Rauta Nordic Metal Cruise 2019. Here we have archipelago view in the cabin. We're actually not having the background noise this time. What a wonderful chance. And what is more wonderful is obviously the band in question. Here we have it. Enslaved. The guys doing their kind of a Viking extreme metal of sorts. And here is Ivar, the long-time founder member of the band with the great beard and grey hair. As you can see, the years have taken its toll. Oh, just kidding aside. How are you now at the cruise, and your gig has already been there yesterday?
I'm very good. We had a great gig last night. Had lots of fun after the gig, even though we played late. Got to bed at 6, 7 in the morning and slept a few hours, so life is good. The view is beautiful. Had some fresh air, and yeah, it's been great.
You have been on these kind of metal cruises before. You have done gigs on both. Does this differ anyway from those other things?
Actually, yes. I think I prefer this one. The Nordic Metal Cruise was it's really cool. I think there's a lot of Finnish, and also we met a bunch of Russian people. And it seems like the Finnish and the Russians, they know how to drink. So things are a little bit more focused. When we went on stage at 1 in the morning, the crowd was still like really focused into it. And we've been to some other cruises where people are pretty much passed out at 10 in the evening. And then you go out, go on at midnight and nobody pays attention. So I would say that this is probably my favorite so far.
Well, that's great to hear. You have had quite a death pit or something like going on in there, though the time was quite light. Is that something that usually happens with your stage audience?
It happens at surprising times. Because we have so many different expressions within the band. We used to maybe when we play some of the older stuff, the blast beats, that it happens, that the crowd goes wild. But we've also had it during the most quiet stuff from the new songs. Mm-hmm. You look out and you get really surprised, like, what, are they doing a mosh pit now during the acoustic part? Well, okay, it's a free world. If that's what people want to do, they should do it.
Yeah, it kind of shows the Finnish mentality quite a lot, that it doesn't matter if you go with the slow, more atmospheric parts, clean vocals and all that stuff, and people are like, on the death pit, and I was like, okay, if we want to do it, you can do it. But then, like you said, you also had these Frost songs, which are very energetic, quite different from your newer material. The question is, what kind of mindset you need to have in just go from the really old ones, like you have one from the Emperor Split, and then go back to the newer material, and which is very different.
Yeah, I think for us, we try to find the organic pathways between the material from the different eras. For me, it's not so much like a linear, like this is the beginning and here's the new stuff. It's a lot more chaotic than that, more spirally.
Kind of cyclic.
Yes, exactly. So some of the new stuff is closer to the old stuff than other new stuff, and so on. So that's for us when we were doing making live sets and so on. Constructing the set lists, it's about finding the natural connections. If it's between 91 and 2018 or 2014 and 15, doesn't really matter. It's about finding the songs that belong together.
I think Krudl was making a joke about your keyboard playing not even born when the oldest material you played last night wasn't even born. And how does these newer parts of the band, so to speak, how well they are driven into Enslaved game?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's obviously a different perspective when the guy is born. Yeah, pretty much around the time the demo came out, but after we wrote it. And it's really healthy for the band, because you get the guy who get an outside perspective on things, and he has, of course, he'd been listening to the band before he came into the band, so he was a fan of the band, but he can come in with some very fresh ways of looking at things. And sometimes, we've been now doing it for 28 years, and then you get these bad habits like old people do, like, oh, it's like that. Why? Because it's always been like that. Things are right just because they are like that. which is very wrong. So then you get the new guy in saying like, should we try doing this? And then actually you're right. And I think that's a very healthy thing. So that's definitely a positive thing about changing lineups from time to time.
A lot of Norwegian bands, which started basically the second wave of black metal as it's commonly seen, have changed their style or somehow just quit, like Emperor basically. But you have been around and you have been evolving, progressing, changing style all the time. I think personally, and no offense meant, I think you had your low point at some way in the, I think, midway. But I think you have made your best albums with the later years, which it was surprising because I grew up with Eld and Frost and the Emperor split material. So how does it differ for you guys, just go with these different phases? When looking in hindsight, do you think you made mistakes or was it all just success in different ways?
Yeah, I agree that there was, for me, I think in low point around the year 2000 maybe, like halfway, let's just say. I agree because there was a lot of other noise that influenced the band, like lineup stuff, social stuff around the band, and that I think that's the mistake that we did at that time. That we lost quite a bit of time because we let those things get in the way of what was important, and that's. But that again, you don't never know. Like if we didn't have those problems, maybe we wouldn't be so determined like we were when we changed the lineup and came back with Isa, and sort of the new what we can think of as sort of the second coming of Enslaved, because that really gave us. It was a slap in the face and really told us that we have a great thing here, we have a great band, great potential, but we really need to focus on what's important and work harder. So who knows?
One could say that you have actually like three waves because like the kind of a first black metalish wave, and then you had this kind of like middle part with Monumentation and stuff. You also had logo of at least three different versions. One with the inverted crosses, then you had the Mjölnir one, and now we have this more modern one. Why did this logo change thing ideas came into the place in the first place?
The first one was more like we really liked the first one. It was drawn up back in the days when we got the logo, and we didn't. We really liked that one, but then we started to feel like we should have a logo that was closer to the identity of the band. And that's when the same person who made the first one with the inverted crosses also made the Mjölnir one. So it's sort of a development of the same logo, we thought. Like a version 2.0. Yeah. But it became a separate one. So they kind of existed on their own. And with the new one, it's simply new times, The new kids, they can't read logos anymore.
Yeah, it's like these bushes, like you see probably the viral memes, there's a photo of all these, tree branches put in a pile and, hey, that's some cool death metal band.
Exactly. So we realized that people didn't have the same perspective on things that we did when we grew up with the tape trading days and everything. It's like a logo was a different thing, and we sort of figured out what it was. You heard it. Now we realized that people sort of missed out on it. So we wanted to have an alternative logo, which was easier to read. And what we've ended up with now is that we have the logos sort of coexist. We still use on merch and on re-releases, so they sort of coexist next to each other. All these three logos. I like them, like all of them. Yeah.
Well, they are all pretty nice. You also kept this Viking stuff going throughout the years, but obviously lyrical side has more or less evolved also with the age and stuff. How much there is a difference in your opinion what you are doing nowadays with Enslaved than, say, early 90s?
Well, I guess it's something maybe that comes with age, that it's not, things are not so urgent in a sense that you don't have to say, like, overstate things as much. So, and also I guess it's becoming more personal. It's more intertwined with, it's been part of our lives, and going from teenagers to now, having our own families and so on. You these perspectives interweave with the different things. So the myths and the runical meanings and so on that you've been singing about, they actually it starts to reflect in your own life, in reality, and that feedback back into the lyrics and so on. So it's a lot more complex, integrate. It's like all these roots that are just weaving into each other. So in one sense, it makes maybe more sense to us, but I also realize maybe it becomes more abstract to the world outside. But that's something also a challenge that we like to work. We don't want to be stating things in people's faces. Like, we're not the kind of Thor, God of Thunder kind of band. Of course, Thor is an important part of the Enslaved lyrics, but we want to be a little bit more subtle about it. But at the same time, you don't want to go and be totally just weird for the sake of being weird. So it's a balance.
You also have By Norse, and you have also the musical projects. What can you tell about these outside Enslaved life?
Yeah, I have on the musical side. I have 2 projects that's still going on. One is with Einar Selvik from Vardruna. We just call it Ivar Bjørnson and Einar Selvik. We've done 2 albums. We just toured with them now in Europe. That's going great. But now both me and Einar are writing new albums for our respective bands. So it's a year or 2 before we look at something new. And then I have Bard Spec, which is sort of my dark ambient project. And By Norse is the record company that's run by me and Einar and our manager together, which we release sort of like a little bit outside the normal path of Enslaved stuff. We do re-releases, live albums, that kind of stuff from Enslaved. We do the Vardruna albums. We have Kaunan, Swedish-German folk band. Yeah. Ivar from Faroe Islands releasing her live album there now. So it's more like a hobby thing. It's we have our day job in our bands, so it's a little bit upside down maybe. But for us, the record company is it's what we want to do for a hobby.
Kind of a therapy project.
Yes, that too, and also it feels good to be artists running a record company, because then sometimes when our artists get frustrated, we know because we've been there. So we try to be a record company where artists can come home and really have a good experience.
Well, that's a nice thing. Now talking about a little bit different. You probably know that Lords of Chaos movie is out, and it's about kind of the era of your teenage years. Have you seen the movie?
No.
Do you have any thoughts about this? Perspective, mayhem and burzum and the early '90s scene stuff. You have any ideas? What's it gonna be, on the scene or the history?
Yeah, I think I've seen enough. So I'm not going to watch the movie, but I read about it. And I think it's. I understand why they're making it, but for me, it's tragic, because that scene means a lot to me. On the other hand, of course, Mr. What's his name? The guy who's making the movie.
Jonas Åkerlund, the ex-Bathory drummer.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm thinking, okay, he was part of inventing black metal, so I guess he's entitled to try and destroy it. That's fine, but. I think that's pretty much what they're doing. It's pretty good at black metal's destroyed itself pretty much 90% already. So these last 10%, of course he can have them, but I don't really see the point. He doesn't seem like a guy who does things just to make money either. So I don't see why we have to piss on this and at this extent. Seeing on Blabbermouth or whatever, these interviews with the American actors. Giving their opinions on the people and the music or not the music actually. Nobody's mentioned the music yet. I'm excited when that's going to happen.
What do you think about the Norwegian scene later years? I mean, back in the '90s when you guys were creating your own music, there were lots of black metal made in Norway, which kind of made you the sort of a black metal capital in the world. But things have changed a lot. So many bands have quit. So many bands have changed their style, and it seems that only a handful of bands are actually anymore related to this, kind of a black metal scene movement or whatever you want to call it. What do you think happened? Is it just people getting old and kind of mature, or was it just kind of a thing for the time, and then it was meant to be moved on?
There was some very good driving forces in the Norwegian scene, and they had a very good nose for PR. But I do agree with Sir Luttinen from Impale Nazarene, the great Finnish band. He was pretty pissed off, I remember, in the 90s. Like, fuck off to the Norwegian bands for claiming to invented this thing, because really didn't know. When the Norwegian black metal scene came, it was already heavily influenced from the Eastern European side of Masters Hammer, Root, Vader, Imperator from Poland. You had the Greek scene, Necromantic and Rotting Christ, and you had Impale Nazarene and those guys going on in Finland. Beheaded. So it was, the Norwegian scene sort of stole the attention. There was a few people there who also did the church burning and all that stuff, so that grabbed the media's attention. So it was more of a good promo strategy than actual truth. And I think that showed also later when the scene became professionalized and people sort of, during like 95, 96, the whole black metal thing went more into going to the big festivals, doing the big tours and so on. And then a lot of the bands sort of, we went from that, the innovative phase, right? Where we have to, where all the black metal bands were inventing their own style and inventing this image thing and the graphic side of things. And that was sort of, it was done in a sense. So a lot of the bands that was part of that, like Enslaved or Ulvar or even Darkthrone, sort of got a little bit, it lost a little bit of the drive. So we went on and created other styles, I would say. And when that happened, nothing much was left. And a lot of what happened the next 10 years is the new bands came, and they all tried to sound like Darkthrone in
You kind of a copycat movement.
in the summer of '92, because the arrogance of being Norwegian it sort of, I think, it overtook them. It was like, we're Norwegian, it's enough. We don't really have to make something. And while this happened, then of course the rest of the world kept working, and now you have the stuff coming out of Sweden, France, of course, Finland, US, and so on. It's on a different level. I would say Norway has a lot of good stuff. In the metal department, you have the legacy bands like Enslaved, Abath, whatever, Isan. But we don't really have a black metal scene anymore, no.
What about the other scene in Norway? There's never been much of a death metal or thrash metal country, but for you, a good example of the how kind of black metal spin-offs happened, and you kept your style all the time. But are there other bands that you still think should deserve more attention? Not only because being Norwegian, but because of actually creating something new and something vital.
Yeah, there's good stuff happening in Norway. I guess you said deserve attention. I guess they get a lot of attention. A band like Ulvar, I think, is very exciting. Talk, gets forgotten sometimes. Well, okay, some of it is his own fault because of all the controversy, If he just didn't do the crazy stuff and just focus on the music, it would be a lot bigger. That's really good. And then you have also a very good progressive scene in Norway, prog rock and also psychedelic music. You have a band called Årabrot, which is more of a noise rock kind of thing that's happening. It's really good. Saver is a new band. Psychedelic, doom, heavy. It used to be called Tombstones. Then they have a new band. So there's definitely things happening, yeah.
Do you think it has a lot to do with the kind of a Norwegian being the kind of a fame of rich country, independent and all that stuff? Do you think it has influenced the metal scene as well?
Yeah, probably. Because it's what they say, on a global scale, that when survival is already done, that's when you start thinking. And I guess that's what's happening. That's how Norwegian youth could get in the 90s can get involved in this big massive struggle of good and evil, and burning the churches and sort of it's the big cosmic or anti-cosmic in some cases questions going on. You don't do that when most of your day is about getting food on the table, that you don't sit around and philosophize so much about that. And so I guess yes, but also the contrast in Norway is quite big, going from being one of the poorest countries in Europe after the Second World War and maybe before that, and becoming in just a few years in the 70s with the finding of the oil, becoming one of the richest. Of course, that's done something also with the Norwegian mentality, that it's, they say that things happen with people when they get rich too soon. Maybe that's a Norwegian thing. Who knows?
All right. Has there been a rise of Norwegian kind of a culture? The pre-Christian culture. Has that changed anything along the way when black metal and other extreme metal styles gone bigger? Has there been any change towards kind of valuing Viking thing?
Yes, it's. I would say that the focus on the pre-Christian Norse culture, it was pretty much absent when we. That was one of the reasons that we focused so hard on it. Actually, that it was really hidden away, stashed away in the 80s and the 90s, and now it's really on the rise. But funnily enough, Norway is one of the last places where it's happening with this whole Viking trend going on in the world. But now also Norway is opening its eyes, and we're seeing a lot of, especially in 2014 there was a 200th anniversary for the Norwegian Constitution, and during that year there was a lot of discussion, and both in in society, in the academic circles, and in art, looking at the critical eye on what actually happened when Norway became a Christian, the transition from the Viking era to becoming a Christian country. And it's really never been discussed so much, but I think when it came up in the light, like how what kind of terror that the Roman Church used to impose Christianity on Norway, I think people started to think a little bit again that maybe not everything else was true either about what they've been told about the Viking era.
Viking theme has been also more in the pop culture. With the Viking series going like 5th season right now, and also God of War video game was selected as one of the major games of 2018, and that had the story about Vikings, with the Loki and all those major characters in Viking lore. Do you think this is a good thing that Viking ship is kind of brought into more popular attention, or is it just trying in an attempt to make money on just this ancient culture?
I think it's both. I think it's very healthy that these things they can be a gateway for people to become interested in their own culture, and I think it's also a gateway when people from other parts of the world get interested. It can be a boost for them to go and look into their own pre-monotheistic time. So it's definitely good, and of course it's a way that pretty much everything we see in society today is based on a motive. Maybe outside, except from some subcultures like metal, you see a lot of idealistic work, but most other things you will see, and definitely within this movie and games and everything, that culture is definitely motivated by profit. But everything is, so I don't mind.
Getting back to Enslaved, now that you have been touring again and, after album, what are your near future plans, say for 2019, 2020 maybe?
Yeah, now the focus is pretty much when getting home from this cruise is writing music. It just started. I'm looking forward to working hard on that for the next weeks, months. And I'm pretty sure we'll have an album recorded by the end of the year.
Is there any kind of a little bit of a hint what kind of influence we're gonna hear this time?
No, no and yes. I think what we started on E, I think maybe we're seeing a fourth wave of Enslaved that might have started with E, the integration of all the eras into what we're doing. We're really happy with the development, but what that really means, I have no idea. I'm the last guy who understands what really happened. Because when I write it, it gets so close that I really can't tell. It sounds good. That's what I'm thinking.
All right. And final, message to the fans, the audience, like you should know about Enslaved that
that we're never going to quit. We've been around now for 28 years, but that's just the beginning. And thank you so much for your support.
So here we have the final flag, final who knows, flag of the Viking metal, progressive metal, extreme metal, all that combined in a beautiful, brilliant way that only enslaved guys can do. Go check them out live. I've seen them a few times and I love them every time. Great albums. So if you're new to Enslaved, do yourself a favor, give yourself a nice early Christmas treat. Go through the discography and go see them live. That's worth your time, guaranteed. Thank you for your time, and I hope you have a good cruise and album making time.
Thank you very much. Happy cruise to you too.
Thank you. This is Rauta saying goodbye from Nordic Metal Cruise 2019. Stay tuned for more Rauta stuff coming your way. Adios. Thank you very much. This was a really, really nice place.